Forget everything you thought you knew about money and spirituality. What if the key to unlocking true wealth and lasting prosperity isn't a complex stock market strategy, but a timeless divine blueprint laid out in Scripture? This video will reveal God's precise plan for your financial dominion, showing you how Psalm 112 can transform your entire financial landscape, aligning you with generational abundance. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more powerful insights, and share it with someone who needs this breakthrough. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from and how God is inspiring your financial journey. Your story might encourage someone else today. Most people believe prosperity begins with effort. Long hours, relentless hustle, calculated risks, and human strategy. Yet Psalm 112 opens with a startling contradiction to that belief. Blessed is the man who fears the Lord, who delights greatly in his commandments. Scripture does not begin the conversation about wealth with work, but with reverence. This is the divine paradox of prosperity. True wealth does not start with striving, it starts with alignment. The fear of the Lord is often misunderstood. It is not terror, punishment, or spiritual anxiety. Biblically, it refers to deep reverence, submission, and recognition of God as the ultimate source. It is the decision to place God's principles above personal ambition. In a world where financial security feels increasingly unstable, this message feels almost rebellious. Yet Psalm 112 presents it as the foundation upon which everything else stands. Modern believers live in an age of constant economic pressure. Inflation, job insecurity, market volatility, and digital uncertainty have created widespread financial anxiety. People save more, trust less, and fear loss constantly. Ironically, the harder society pushes for control, the more fragile it becomes. Psalm 112 confronts this anxiety not with fear-based preparation but with faith-rooted positioning. It declares that stability flows from righteousness, not prediction. Righteousness in this context is not moral perfection. It is alignment with God's design, how one thinks, gives, works, leads, and relates. When Psalm 112 places reverence before reward, it reveals that prosperity is a byproduct of order. God's economy does not reward panic, it responds to obedience. This is why Scripture repeatedly links blessing to alignment rather than accumulation. The paradox deepens when we realize that righteousness is not a sacrifice. It is an investment. Many people fear that living uprightly will limit their opportunities. They believe honesty slows growth, generosity drains resources, and integrity costs influence. Psalm 112 reverses this logic. It shows that righteousness multiplies capacity. What seems restrictive in the short term becomes expansive in the long term. This is especially relevant today. In a culture where shortcuts are normalized and compromise is rewarded, upright living appears risky. Yet Psalm 112 boldly claims that those who fear the Lord are not disadvantaged, they are positioned. They operate from a different source, divine favor. Favor does what effort cannot. It opens doors strategy never saw. It protects resources human systems cannot secure. The fear of the Lord also restructures motivation. Instead of chasing wealth as validation, the believer pursues purpose as obedience. This shift removes pressure. When wealth is pursued directly, it creates anxiety and comparison. When purpose is pursued, provision follows naturally. Psalm 112 teaches that prosperity works best when it is not the primary goal. Another dimension of this paradox is peace. Psalm 112 later describes the righteous as unafraid of bad news. That confidence begins here. When prosperity is rooted in reverence, it is not shaken by circumstances. Markets may fluctuate, systems may fail, but the righteous are anchored. This is not denial, it is dominion. They are not controlled by fear because their trust is placed higher than systems. This is why Psalm 112 is not a financial formula, but a spiritual framework. It addresses the internal posture before external outcomes. God's blueprint always begins with the heart because whatever controls the heart eventually controls the harvest. Wealth obtained without alignment becomes a burden. Wealth stewarded through reverence becomes a blessing. The divine paradox challenges today's believer to rethink priorities. What if the greatest financial decision is not an investment portfolio, but a posture of reverence? What if prosperity responds more to obedience than opportunity? Psalm 112 insists that fearing the Lord is not the end of ambition, it is the beginning of sustainable abundance. This sets the stage for everything else. Before wealth multiplies, values must align. Before resources expand, reverence must deepen. God's blueprint does not start with money, it starts with submission. And from that alignment, prosperity flows naturally, confidently, and without fear. Psalm 112 expands the definition of wealth far beyond what most people measure. Verse the 3rd of December layers. Wealth and riches are in his house, and his righteousness endures forever. Notice the structure. Riches are mentioned, but righteousness is emphasized as enduring. This tells us immediately that God's concept of wealth is multidimensional. Money is included, but it is not the whole picture, nor is it the most valuable part. In today's world, wealth is often reduced to numbers on a screen. Net worth, income streams, assets, and investments dominate the conversation. Yet many who possess these still live in anxiety, broken relationships, and inner unrest. Psalm 112 challenges this narrow definition by presenting wealth as a state of life, not merely a state of finance. The righteous are wealthy because their lives function well across multiple dimensions. Biblical wealth includes peace of mind. A person who lies awake at night fearing loss is not truly rich, regardless of income. Psalm 112 later says, "The righteous are not afraid of evil tidings, their hearts are steady." That emotional stability is a form of wealth many cannot buy. In a culture driven by stress and burnout, peace becomes one of the rarest and most valuable assets. Influence is another dimension of righteous riches. Psalm 112-2 speaks of descendants becoming mighty on earth. Might is not only about money, it is about impact. The righteous leave impressions, shape environments, and affect systems. Their words carry weight. Their presence brings order. Influence expands opportunities faster than capital alone ever could. Legacy also defines true wealth. Psalm 112 ties riches to generational blessing, not personal consumption. Worldly wealth often ends with the individual, but righteous wealth outlives the owner. It builds foundations others can stand on. A righteous life deposits wisdom, values, and vision into the next generation. That inheritance cannot be taxed, stolen, or inflated away. In 2026, real-world examples of multidimensional abundance are increasingly visible. Business leaders who operate with integrity attract trust, loyalty, and long-term partnerships. Families that prioritize values over vanity experience stability even in economic uncertainty. Individuals who refuse compromise may grow slower initially, but they build reputations that compound over time. Their wealth is resilient because it is rooted in character. Psalm 112 also reveals a powerful connection between upright living and favor. Favor is not random. It responds to alignment. When a person walks uprightly, they create spiritual and relational credibility. People trust them. Opportunities find them. Systems respond positively to them. This is not manipulation. It is resonance. Integrity attracts alignment. Many believers struggle because they pursue money without cultivating character. Psalm 112 flips this order. It shows that when righteousness is established, resources follow naturally. God does not fear blessing the upright, because he trusts them with increase. The problem is rarely abundance. It is stewardship. Righteousness proves capacity. Another overlooked dimension of wealth is time. The righteous often experience efficiency and clarity. They waste less energy cleaning up compromise, repairing broken trust, or managing chaos. Their lives flow better. Time redeemed becomes productivity multiplied. This is wealth that cannot be deposited in a bank. Yet it shapes outcomes profoundly. Psalm 112 also implies visibility. Light shines in darkness for the upright. Their wealth is not hidden, it is noticeable, but not boastful. It serves as testimony, not ego. This balance matters. When wealth serves purpose rather than pride, it remains sustainable. Understanding wealth this way liberates the believer from comparison. If wealth is multidimensional, then no one else's success diminishes yours. You are not behind, you are building differently. Psalm 112 offers freedom from the pressure to perform financially and replaces it with confidence in God's design. The righteous are rich even before money arrives because their lives are aligned. And when financial increase does come, it enhances what already works instead of exposing what is broken. This is the secret Psalm 112 reveals. Wealth that rests on righteousness multiplies without destroying its owner. Psalm 112 doesn't leave us in the abstract. After establishing that prosperity flows from righteousness, it moves into actionable principles. Principles that can be applied in today's life to activate what we call the kingdom economy. Verse 9 says, "He has distributed freely, he has given to the poor, his righteousness endures forever." Here, generosity becomes the engine that translates spiritual alignment into tangible abundance. Many believers misunderstand giving. They see tithes, offerings, and acts of charity as obligations or sacrifices that drain resources. Yet Psalm 112 reframes them as accelerators. Giving is not depletion, it is activation. It signals faith in God's provision and obedience to His design. When we release resources strategically, we align ourselves with a flow that God oversees. The principle is simple. Abundance is unlocked when hands are open, not clenched. Practically, activating the kingdom economy begins with intention. Psalm 112 highlights consistent, faithful, and thoughtful giving. It is not about occasional grand gestures, it is about habitual obedience. In today's world, this can take multiple forms: tithing faithfully, supporting community initiatives, mentoring younger believers, or investing in ethical ventures that honor God's values. The principle is the same. Resources are used to honor purpose, not vanity. Another practical step is generosity with impact. Psalm 112 implies strategic distribution. Resources are given in ways that multiply. For example, helping someone start a business or fund an education doesn't just meet a short-term need. It creates long-term transformation. Modern believers can replicate this principle by identifying opportunities that produce ripple effects: scholarships, vocational training, or micro-loans in underserved communities. The return may not be immediate, but kingdom economy operates on eternal principles, not instant gratification. Serving others is another critical element. Psalm 112 positions generosity as a reflection of God's favor. Serving is not just giving money. It is offering time, wisdom, influence, and energy. When believers serve, they enter into systems of favor they cannot manufacture. Businesses flourish under ethical leadership, partnerships strengthen, and reputations grow because the righteous operate in alignment with God's design. Misconceptions about giving often block believers from abundance. Some believe the poor gain at their expense, or that their needs will go unmet. Psalm 112 flips this assumption. The one who gives freely is described as strengthened, established, and unshaken. Giving does not reduce supply, it activates provision. This counterintuitive truth is central to kingdom economy. Abundance flows through channels, and generosity opens those channels. Another actionable step is purpose-driven living. Wealth is a byproduct of alignment, but alignment requires clarity. Psalm 112 shows that righteous individuals are not passive. They pursue God's purposes actively. Today, this translates into identifying gifts, callings, and opportunities that match God's design. When work, vocation, and service align with divine principles, the kingdom economy responds. Favor, connections, and resources flow in ways that defy human logic. Finally, consistency is key. Psalm 112 emphasizes enduring righteousness. Breakthrough is rarely instantaneous. It grows through habits, disciplined obedience, and small acts of faith. Modern believers can emulate this by creating daily or weekly routines that honor God, prayerful financial decisions, regular giving, ethical business practices, mentorship, and community service. These actions compound over time, activating both spiritual and material abundance. The kingdom economy also involves the mindset of stewardship. Resources are tools, not trophies. Psalm 112 encourages believers to manage wealth responsibly. Mismanagement blocks flow, integrity ensures multiplication. This is why financial education, wise decision making, and accountability are essential. They honor God and sustain long-term impact. In summary, activating abundance in the kingdom economy is practical and replicable. It begins with a reverent posture, moves through generous and strategic action, aligns with purpose, and is sustained through consistency and stewardship. Psalm 112 presents a system where righteousness, generosity, and purpose work together to unlock a flow of favor, influence, and prosperity. The steps are not magical. They are principles of obedience that create exponential results when applied faithfully. When believers adopt these steps today, they witness not only financial breakthrough, but holistic transformation, families strengthened, communities uplifted, and legacies built. This is kingdom economy in motion, a reality that starts with Psalm 112, but extends into every dimension of life. Psalm 112:2 declares, "His descendants will be mighty on earth. The generation of the upright will be blessed." This is a powerful statement about generational impact. Wealth, influence, and prosperity are not intended to stop with the individual. God's design extends blessings across families, communities, and generations. Generational dominion is not merely an aspiration. It is a blueprint for enduring kingdom impact. Many believers focus on immediate gains. They want financial breakthrough now, recognition now, success now. But Psalm 112 reframes prosperity as a multi-generational strategy. True wealth is sustainable. It grows roots deep enough to weather storms and extend blessings beyond the lifespan of one person. When one aligns with God's principles, every decision becomes an investment in a legacy that outlives the self. The first element of generational dominion is wisdom transfer. Psalm 112 emphasizes that the righteous influence their descendants. Wisdom is more valuable than money alone. Teaching children the principles of integrity, stewardship, and faith equips them to navigate life with discernment. In practical terms, this can mean mentoring children and grandchildren in financial literacy, ethical leadership, and kingdom principles. The goal is to produce not just heirs, but faithful stewards, capable of multiplying what they inherit. Second, generational dominion requires intentional planning. Psalm 112 contrasts worldly wealth strategies, which often prioritize accumulation and consumption, with God's design, which prioritizes preservation, multiplication, and influence. Modern believers can emulate this by establishing structures that protect and grow resources, trusts, charitable foundations, family-owned ventures, and legacy projects that benefit communities. These structures ensure that blessings flow in alignment with God's vision for enduring prosperity. Third, the righteous model values over short-term gain. Children learn from observation more than instruction. Psalm 112 presents righteous living as a template for future generations, demonstrating integrity in business, generosity in giving, and faith in God's provision. Sends a far stronger message than any lecture about money or ethics. Living out kingdom principles daily builds habits in the next generation that compound over time. Fourth, Psalm 112 challenges the believer to think beyond personal comfort. Generational dominion includes influence, impact, and service. Blessings are meant to expand communities, uplift neighbors, and create systems of justice and fairness. For example, a believer who starts ethical businesses, funds education, or mentors future leaders is planting seeds that multiply far beyond family boundaries. This is the holistic vision of God's wealth, a ripple effect that transforms society while securing the family legacy. Fifth, generational dominion is deeply spiritual. Material prosperity alone does not guarantee enduring legacy. Psalm 112 links blessings with righteousness. This is critical. Wealth without spiritual foundation can corrupt. God's model ensures that abundance is anchored in values, purpose, and alignment with His will. When families center their resources on God's principles, blessings are sustainable and resilient, even through societal upheavals or financial crises. Another critical aspect is generational faith. Psalm 112 shows that the upright impact not just material circumstances, but spiritual inheritance, teaching children to fear the Lord, to delight in His commandments, and to prioritize alignment over ambition, creates a chain reaction of faith-filled generations. This spiritual inheritance is as valuable as financial wealth because it shapes character, decision making, and resilience. Finally, generational dominion requires courage. Many avoid long-term planning because it feels distant or uncertain. Yet Psalm 112 reassures believers that faithfulness today produces results tomorrow. Dominion is not about controlling outcomes, but about planting seeds strategically, investing time, resources, and character so that future generations thrive. This mindset transforms temporary challenges into permanent opportunities. In essence, Psalm 112 presents wealth as relational, spiritual, and multidimensional. Generational dominion is about stewardship on a grand scale, using today's blessings to empower the next generation to rise higher. Believers are not just recipients of abundance. They are trustees of a divine blueprint designed for enduring impact. By living uprightly, modeling values, transferring wisdom, and planning strategically, the righteous ensure that their prosperity is never fleeting but everlasting. The lesson is clear. The kingdom economy is not a sprint, it is a relay. Each generation receives the baton of blessing and responsibility. How one runs today determines the strength, speed, and success of the next. Psalm 112 calls every believer to build beyond themselves, to think legacy first, and to activate blessings that endure. Psalm 112 repeatedly emphasizes that true wealth is not merely a matter of material accumulation. It is rooted in divine favor. Verse the 4th of December layers, even in darkness light dawns for the upright, for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous. This verse reveals a profound truth. Prosperity anchored in God's favor is unshakable, resilient to the storms of life, and enduring in times of uncertainty. Divine favor is not an abstract concept. It is a supernatural alignment of circumstances, opportunities, and relationships that God orchestrates for those who live in obedience to His word. While human effort can create temporary gains, favor produces results that surpass effort, timing, and human limitations. This is the foundation upon which the righteous build lasting success. Living in divine favor requires intentionality. Psalm 112 connects favor to character, graciousness, compassion, and righteousness. These are not optional traits. They are active principles that generate influence and trust. Favor is attracted to integrity. In the modern world, where transactional behavior often dominates, demonstrating these qualities in business, ministry, and daily interactions positions a believer to receive unexpected opportunities, breakthroughs, and protection. Consider the believer navigating volatile economic landscapes. Markets fluctuate, jobs are uncertain, and financial pressures mount. Favor acts as a stabilizing force, producing outcomes that human calculation cannot predict. Psalm 112 tells us the righteous are not afraid of bad news. Why? Because favor provides confidence that divine oversight governs circumstances, regardless of external turbulence. This peace is itself a form of wealth, one that money cannot buy. Favor also intersects with opportunity. Those who consistently act in alignment with God's principles find doors opening in ways that appear miraculous. Business ventures, partnerships, and promotions often come at the right time and place, not necessarily because of aggressive pursuit, but because favor orchestrates connections, resources, and insights. Modern testimonies abound of individuals who, despite skill and diligence, experience breakthrough only when divine favor intersected with their preparation. Another essential aspect is sustainability. Psalm 112 shows that wealth built on divine favor is protected against sudden collapse. Favor shields not only finances but reputation, relationships, and influence. For the righteous, setbacks are temporary. They rebound faster, recover with integrity, and continue to grow. This security is not passive. It results from consistent alignment with God's principles over time. Living in divine favor also requires faithfulness in small matters. Psalm 112 underscores enduring righteousness, not sporadic or grandiose actions. Favor responds to consistency. Daily acts of obedience, integrity in transactions, generosity, and ethical decision making create an environment in which God's blessings can flow unhindered. Small, faithful actions compound into profound outcomes. Favor cannot coexist with compromise. Psalm 112 positions the righteous as those who fear the Lord and act justly. When one shortcuts, manipulates, or prioritizes selfish gain, favor retreats. In modern applications, this principle is evident in career, business, and relationships. Favor supports the upright but distances itself from deception and unethical behavior. The unshakable foundation, therefore, is built on character and alignment. Moreover, divine favor inspires confidence, vision, and boldness. The righteous do not operate in fear, because they understand the principle. Favor empowers action beyond personal capacity. It enables believers to take calculated risks that align with God's purpose, knowing that provision, protection, and opportunity accompany obedience. Favor transforms fear into faith, hesitation into action, and uncertainty into trust. Psalm 112 also links favor with generosity. Those who give freely, serve faithfully, and prioritize the kingdom over self automatically activate favor in their lives. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Righteous actions attract favor, which produces opportunity and stability, enabling further righteousness and influence. The believer becomes a conduit of blessing, not just a recipient. Ultimately, the unshakable foundation is not built on wealth, skills, or strategy. It is built on a relationship with God, expressed through righteous living. This foundation ensures that whatever financial, emotional, or societal storms arise, the believer's position remains secure. Light dawns in darkness, hope endures in despair, and prosperity flows in alignment with purpose. For today's believer, Psalm 112 provides a blueprint. Favor is the core, righteousness is the pathway, and wealth, both material and multidimensional, flows naturally. Aligning with this principle ensures that blessings are not fleeting but enduring. Influence is not superficial but transformative, and legacy is not temporary but eternal. Divine favor is the cornerstone upon which kingdom prosperity is established. One of the most powerful lessons from Psalm 112 is that prosperity and favor are activated not by occasional grand gestures, but by consistent daily alignment with God's principles. Verse 6 says, "Surely he will never be shaken, a righteous man will be remembered forever." This emphasizes that endurance, steadfastness in faith, obedience, and righteous living creates unshakable results over time. Many believers make the mistake of waiting for monumental moments to act, big donations, major business ventures, or massive career moves. While such actions have their place, Psalm 112 teaches that it is the habitual, often invisible choices that define wealth, favor, and legacy. Daily obedience, small acts of integrity, persistent generosity, prayerful stewardship, and ethical decision-making lays a foundation that compounds into exponential results. Applying Psalm 112 daily begins with a mindset shift. Instead of focusing solely on outcomes, believers are encouraged to focus on alignment. The question is not, will I get wealthy today? But, am I living righteously today? Each day presents opportunities to act justly, serve others, and honor God's commands. When the believer prioritizes consistent righteous action over immediate gain, abundance flows naturally as a byproduct of alignment rather than pursuit. Generosity is central to daily application. Verse 9 highlights the blessedness of giving. He has distributed freely, he has given to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. Modern believers can practice this principle through intentional, consistent giving. Whether financial support, time, mentorship, or skills. The key is regularity, not magnitude. Even small, Faithful contributions establish a rhythm that activates kingdom economy and attracts favor. The ripple effect of consistent generosity far surpasses the impact of sporadic large gifts. Another practical aspect is integrity in all interactions. Daily adherence to honesty, fairness, and ethical standards strengthens personal credibility and influence. Psalm 112 consistently links uprightness to prosperity. In contemporary terms, this means being reliable in business deals, transparent in leadership, and trustworthy in relationships. Over time, such consistency builds a reputation that opens doors and sustains influence. Daily application also involves managing resources with intentionality. Stewardship is a recurring theme in Psalm 112. Wealth is not merely acquired, it is responsibly managed. Modern believers can integrate this principle through budgeting, planning, and strategic investment that honors God's purposes. Consistent stewardship demonstrates faithfulness in small things, which God promises to multiply into greater opportunities and provision. Prayer and reflection are essential components of daily practice. Engaging with God's Word, meditating on Psalm 112, and seeking divine guidance in decisions cultivates alignment. Daily prayer aligns the believer's heart with God's vision, ensuring that actions are not self-directed but kingdom-directed. Even brief, intentional moments of reflection or devotion create cumulative impact, transforming mindset, decisions, and behavior over time. Another critical application is relational consistency. Psalm 112 links favor to grace, compassion, and righteousness. Daily investment in relationships, supporting family, mentoring peers, encouraging colleagues, activates favor in social and professional networks. These small intentional acts of care build influence and trust that often lead to unforeseen opportunities and breakthroughs. Consistency also reinforces resilience. Verse 6 emphasizes that the righteous will never be shaken. Daily application creates habits that withstand external pressures, economic volatility, societal instability, or personal trials. By embedding righteous practices into the rhythm of life, the believer builds spiritual and emotional muscles that sustain wealth, favor, and influence over the long term. Finally, Psalm 112 reminds us that small actions compound into legacy. What may seem insignificant today, helping a neighbor, giving a small donation, acting ethically in minor decisions, accumulates into lasting impact over time. Daily faithfulness produces both visible and invisible results. Financial breakthroughs, personal favor, community transformation, and generational blessing. In essence, applying Psalm 112 daily shifts focus from sporadic effort to habitual obedience, from chasing outcomes to cultivating alignment, and from temporary gains to enduring impact. Consistency over grand gestures creates the conditions for unshakable prosperity, divine favor, and lasting legacy. It is the faithful daily choices that multiply into the multidimensional wealth God promises: financial, relational, spiritual, and generational. Psalm 112 provides more than personal guidance. It is a blueprint for transforming lives, families, and entire communities. The righteous person, rooted in reverence for God and aligned with His principles, becomes a channel of blessing that extends beyond self-interest. Verse 9 captures this vision. He has distributed freely, He has given to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. Wealth, when activated through God's design, is not hoarded, it multiplies impact and transforms society. The first principle of transformation is holistic prosperity. Psalm 112 presents wealth as multidimensional: financial stability, influence, peace, and legacy. Applying this in real life means that believers use their resources not only for personal comfort but to address societal needs. For example, funding education, supporting ethical businesses, and mentoring youth are ways to extend blessing. When communities are lifted, systemic change occurs and the ripple effect of righteous wealth compounds. Generosity is the engine of transformation. Scripture emphasizes that giving is not a burden, but a strategic act in God's economy. Consistent and purposeful generosity releases favor and activates abundance. Modern believers who engage in intentional acts of giving, scholarships, community projects, charitable initiatives, experience a return not just financially but relationally and spiritually. Communities see tangible change, and the giver participates in God's work of restoration and opportunity creation. Education and empowerment are critical dimensions. Psalm 112's emphasis on generational blessing highlights the importance of equipping the next generation. Transformational believers invest in knowledge transfer, teaching children values, skills, and financial literacy. Beyond family, this includes mentoring emerging leaders, supporting vocational programs, and creating opportunities for underprivileged groups. In doing so, the kingdom economy extends to the wider community, creating self-sustaining cycles of prosperity. Integrity and influence are central to community transformation. Favor and wealth follow righteous living, and such individuals shape the ethical and moral culture of their surroundings. A community with upright leaders sees reduced corruption, increased trust, and enhanced collaboration. Businesses operate transparently, social initiatives thrive, and relationships strengthen. The ripple effect of integrity creates an environment where prosperity is accessible and enduring for more people. Purpose-driven initiatives multiply impact. Psalm 112 teaches that wealth is not merely for accumulation, but for purpose-aligned action. Modern believers can harness their financial and human resources to solve problems, launch initiatives, and fund projects that align with God's values. Purposeful investments, whether in clean water projects, education, or healthcare, address critical needs while reflecting God's generosity. This creates visible evidence of the kingdom at work in everyday life. Resilience is another hallmark of transformation. Psalm 112 emphasizes that the righteous are unshaken by adversity. Communities led or influenced by such individuals inherit this resilience. During crises, economic or social, faith-aligned leaders provide guidance, stability, and resources. Their consistent alignment with God's principles ensures that challenges do not derail progress, but instead produce opportunities for further growth. The final element is vision. Transforming finances and communities requires seeing beyond the immediate. Psalm 112 encourages long-term thinking, investing in generational blessings, systemic change, and sustainable impact. Modern application involves strategic planning, ethical entrepreneurship, and mentorship programs designed to multiply resources and influence over time. The kingdom blueprint is always forward-looking, anticipating growth that aligns with God's purposes. Importantly, transformation is relational. Psalm 112 links prosperity to righteous behavior, which fosters trust, respect, and collaboration. Wealth becomes a tool for building networks, influencing culture, and amplifying initiatives that serve many. Communities experience change not only because of resources, but because righteous individuals model behaviors and systems that encourage growth and ethical success. In essence, Psalm 112 outlines a blueprint where personal alignment, daily obedience, and righteous living intersect with tangible actions, giving, mentoring, ethical leadership, and vision. Applying these principles transforms finances from mere numbers to instruments of societal blessing. The believer becomes a conduit through which God's favor flows, multiplying impact and creating lasting change. By living out this blueprint consistently, today's believers can reshape their families, communities, and spheres of influence. Prosperity ceases to be a personal pursuit and becomes a divine strategy to restore and uplift others. Psalm 112 shows that true kingdom wealth is never isolated. It radiates outward, creating generational impact, societal transformation, and enduring glory for God's purposes. Through this alignment, both financial and communal landscapes are transformed, fulfilling God's ultimate design for abundant righteous living.